Ayomide here, and you already know what time it is. We're back for another episode of the World Without People podcast. More voices, more real stories, and even deeper conversations that challenge the way we see the world. This season, we're peeling back even more layers, exploring life, love, purpose, and the beautiful complexities of the human experience. New guests, fresh perspectives, and of course, the same unfiltered, soul stirring energy you love. So, whether you've been rocking with us since day one or you're just joining the adventure, welcome. Grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's keep the conversation going one unforgettable story at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The World Without People. My name is Ayomide, and I'm excited to be here. I'm always excited to be here, and I'm particularly excited because I'm just meeting Daniel for the very first time. I always say this about people that I'm meeting like before, but we didn't even actually do a lot of talking before today, which is usually what I try to do when I'm having a new guest. But he was highly recommended by my strategist and everything that Intent does, and I'm really so excited because she's spoken very, very highly of you. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And then turns out he knows my husband because everybody knows. It's really, really cool, especially because, as we're doing this now, we have a home studio, so it's nice that, there's some kind of safety in people coming and stuff like that. Anyways, thank you, Daniel. So it's Daniel Alfred, yes?
Yes.
For the purposes of...
Or just Daniel for play.
Daniel for, okay. All right, sounds good. And I always like to know a little bit of background. So high school, university, church or mosque, all of that good stuff. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
Okay, background. I was born in London.
Oh, okay.
I was born in London, then
I can see it. I can hear.
Came to Nigeria, moved back to Nigeria at a very early age. Did, majority part of primary school. Primary school was a bit in and out.
Okay.
But high school as well. Also did a bit of it in South England.
Okay.
South England and came, so it was a bit of like a to and fro.
Okay.
To and fro, so like a bit there, a bit here, a bit here and there. So like did high school here. After I'd come back from middle school, then after that went back to England for uni.
Okay, so where was high school?
Okay, high school, I did high school here. So I had attended 2 high schools, Austin College and Edgewood College.
No, wait, do you know my sister?
Who's your sister?
Olara. Oluwaseun.
Oh, that's your sister?
Yes.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn.
That's crazy. Yeah,
I need to now find out the behind the scenes story. Oh, wow. Cool. Oh, yeah, because also, first of all, I'm aging myself at this rate.
She was an athlete, very energetic.
Oh, that's so cool. Because I haven't met many people. In fact, you're the second person I'm meeting that went to Awesome College. So cool.
Then Edgewood. Edgewood was relatively new because that was more where I did my foundation year.
Okay.
Before I went to uni.
Okay.
So Edgewood is in Lekki Phase 1.
Never heard of it.
So it started out, I think it was like 2010.
Okay.
Or 2000, I think that's when it started,
Feeling very old, but...
I did my foundation in 2011, I think.
Okay.
And started uni in 2012.
Okay.
Middlesex University, that was in London.
Okay.
Yeah, did uni there, then after that came back to Nigeria, kind of just like try to figure out the whole career path here, So I had worked in a marketing and advertising firm for a bit.
Okay.
I initially did tech in London, but the marketing and advertising industry kind of appealed to me. So when I worked in that industry for a bit, it kind of took me down like deeper into that creative path.
Okay.
So for some time, I then went to Cape Town, South Africa. I did a course there in film, like digital media production, advertising. Okay. So that was like more like a side quest / fun. It was fun, of course, but that allowed me to just like, I guess, have like a deeper knowledge of the industry, like from production, advertising, everything. So after that, came back to Nigeria again. Came back in 2019. Okay. And in that period, I thought I'd be here for like 3 months. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd be here for 3 months, but no one saw the pandemic coming like a year after.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
No one saw that coming, and I'm here.
So that's interesting because someone asked me, I was asking somebody I was going to do a live, and they asked me that if they were going to ask any question, they will say, what do I still find appealing about Nigeria?
Right.
Why Nigeria?
Right.
So I thought I might ask you, since you're again part of the going back and forth, what do you still find appealing about Nigeria?
That's a good question. I think what I find appealing, and I would say specifically about Lagos, is the drive. And that drive is like, irregardless of what has happened, in terms of the politics, economy, governance, like, there's still that drive, and it shows in the social life, it shows in the nightlife, you know. That's been a part of Lagos that I've really enjoyed. I was still telling a friend about how, personally, I feel like at least for me, in my opinion, I feel like I enjoyed Lagos's nightlife more around 2014, 2015. I think that was prime.
Yeah.
You know, so these times are nice, you know, but I feel like those times were like the prime. But yeah, I like the energy. Long story short, the energy and like how the social scene is. Yeah. So it's like, irregardless of what people are going through, the fact that people still get to like come out, show up for each other, I think that part really appeals.
Okay, fair enough. I will say, for me, nightlife now, I'm like, no. And it might just be an age thing, because you're right. I feel like when I used to come visit back in the day, and I say pre-pandemic, I think Nigeria's nightlife was just the best. That's my personal opinion. Now, I think the good thing about it is nightlife has kind of morphed into a lot more social things that don't have to be at night. At least for me, anyways. Not like I'm going anywhere, but if I was going to go someplace, I think that there's just a lot more activities I can find myself doing during the day, as opposed to needing to be outside at night. The only other thing is the weather. It's the weather that is... the weather is the only thing that keeps me at home. Well, not the only thing. But okay, we finished talking about nightlife. All right, okay. So you're in Nigeria. You've been in Nigeria since 2020, give or take. I'm trying to find the best way to say what you do without saying what you do.
Right.
What are your current passions?
I think entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Yeah, entrepreneurship and community building.
Okay.
Through my brand.
Yeah.
So, yeah, both of them.
Okay. Now, community building is separate from entrepreneurship. So let's talk entrepreneurship first.
Right.
I'm very much into businesses.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I think I've always been an entrepreneurial person. I think I may have spoke about my work experience in the marketing and advertising.
Yes, exactly.
But I only did that that's the first and last time I worked 9 to 5. And I was like,
this is not for me.
Yeah, that's like more than 10 years ago, I think. It's a really long time ago. So I think, entrepreneurship is fun. I personally feel like, at least for myself, I've never been a 9 to 5 kind of person, but I recognize what people achieve in that area. But for me, I feel like entrepreneurship gives you so much room to build things, right? Because the way the world is set up, like, majority of people are consuming. Yeah. So it's now a question of like, what if you meet things that are not produced to your standard? Would you put yourself at their mercy to provide or produce what you really want? Or would you go in there and make by yourself, by your standards, and then put it out there? So I feel like entrepreneurship is about that, like creativity and craftsmanship. Money making is of course part of it, but I'm very big on craftsmanship and integrity. So I feel like that's what entrepreneurship is about. But you know, these times you see lots of people just like doing maybe like 7 things at the same time, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's now a question of, do you really have any passion for anything you're doing? It's just simply about just making money. And you know, this part of the world that we're in, it's you don't need to say that like everyone wants to make money, and it's very valid because the standards of life here. But that being said, you just want to make sure that there's some bit of passion into what you're doing, and you're seeing like room for impacts and living a legacy. Yeah. Living a legacy.
I like that. I think you said something that is at the core of why Nigeria is important to me, which is producing, right? Because we don't produce anything apart from maybe like fashion, which no offense to fashion at this, and music.
And music.
Do we produce? I mean, I feel like we're not doing a lot of our own production. I mean, the other day somebody was trying to sell me pomegranates for like 7,000. I'm like, please, what's happening here? Like, that's about $5. Which maybe in America it's okay because you are there. That's your cost of living. But why am I buying something worth 7,000 because you're telling me that it's imported because we don't produce our own thing? So of course we do have certain foods. I'm not, let's be fair. But I'm just saying that we are not even like, we're importing our own rice, I hear. We're, those kind of things. So it's our own cocoa, but we're not making our own chocolate, and we're selling, and like we are one of the big producers of cocoa. So it's for me, it's a very, very interesting thing. Every time you go to a restaurant, they're trying to sell you on fine dining, and nothing wrong with fine dining. It is what it is. But why are we not doing fine dining with our own local foods, right? That kind of thing. So anyways, I say all of this to say that I think that's the big thing for me with Nigeria, that we are not producing. And so when you say, okay, you're recognizing that and you're seeing that as an opportunity, I think that's why everybody should be here, right? Because I think when we also are now then producing that much, there's real competition, and that's how the economy grows. Because now we have, especially in fashion, I don't understand all of these expensive prices. So I need to understand. You're saying producing, so what are you producing now, number one? Number two, why are we still talking dollars when we talk about some of these things? I really want to understand.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think what we're producing for the brand is we're launching our first collection.
The producing is part of the brand. It's part of your, aha. So now I need you to talk about, okay, just so you know, one of the reasons why Daniel is here is because he focuses on men, right? Or focuses on building men, right? And then together with this lifestyle, right? So first of all, talk about the name, because the name is also very weird. I was going to ask you about that. And then talk us through how, why, and yeah, I'll ask you all my many questions after that.
So I start with the brand, what it's about?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Hunters and Sons, I agree it's a very unique name. It catches people's attention. It's like, what is Hunters and Sons? Like, it sounds so, you know. But I think the idea started in must have been like 2015 or I think 2015. Some of those like times where we'd be around in like maybe Nigeria for like the summer, and you know, just going out with the guys, having fun, and just being like, I think, I'm trying to remember how old I was in 2015. I think I was I was 21, I think.
Okay.
I think I was 21 by that time. So I think the idea just came around like being this kind of guy. I always saw myself as this guy who was always self-sufficient, independent, go-getter, set your eyes on the prize, eyes on the target. And I happen to have friends who are like that too.
Right.
So even though like we happen to be, you know, in some sense born to comfortable homes, right? We didn't wait for our parents to give us anything. Of course, they sent us to school and everything, but like we prided ourselves in hustling, you know, getting things. So that's why the name Hunters came to mind. But the irony is like back then, I just had the idea that I should build a brand that was about pushing men to be go-getters, achievers, like you know, men of standard. But you know, again, I was much younger, so the idea of the brand was a lot more immature. And was a lot more, it does say immature.
I like that. Sorry to interrupt you. I really do like that, because, you know, one, you're able to look back and look within and say, hey, this was not mature. I really like that. And how do you reckon though? How do you reckon that it was immature? I should say.
Why some elements of it were not mature is because I was seeing myself as a hunter, which was good. But on what criteria was I a hunter? You know, so back then our being hunters was like we would just the idea that okay, every Friday we'll make XYZ amount of money, and for the coming Friday we know that we're spending it in XYZ club. You know, and the next morning we're broke.
Wow.
And we're like, you know what, we're going to make XYZ amount again, and we'll make it, and we'll spend it again. So that was as far as the go-getter mentality went. But as time went on, and I looked more into the brand and the idea, and it was not like, you know, why don't we actually create a brand that inspires men to be hunters, right? But now these kind of hunters that they are not simply guys who supposedly just know how to just make money and maybe get girls or have fun, but people who now apply this mindset and mentality to their life, to their purpose, right? So it's not like, okay, if you're calling yourself a hunter, so the logo, the motto of the brand says, hunt, provide, play. Right. So it says we're hunters, we're providers, and we're adventurers, right? So now when you put that together, it's now meaning that we are men who are providing resource to each other and to the world at large. So we're empowering each other to be better, we're telling ourselves uncomfortable truth. You know, we are growing as a collective of men, we're inspiring each other, and so that's how the idea evolved from being immature to being a responsible, you know. So,
I love that.
So that's the idea of it. Just men who are evolving, and one of the ethos, because we had our men's brunch like 2 days ago. Okay. And I had to like re-emphasize this to like the new attendees. I think 80% of the attendees had never met them before. And I had to re-emphasize it to them that the whole core of the brand is not just for us to just gather and be fanboys and just like, just shake hands and pose for the camera. It's for us to like grow, be vulnerable, teach ourselves, because no one has the singular wealth of knowledge, right?
Yep.
Let's teach ourselves how to be better hunters, but let's also strive to be the image of positive masculinity. So I use that word specifically because we spoke about that again. I spoke about how someone once debated me and some people on it, like, why do we call it positive masculinity? Why don't we just call it masculinity? But when you look at the kind of experiences that some men and women have gone through in the hands of masculine figures in their lives,
Right.
are you going to tell them how they should see masculinity?
Right.
You can't tell them that, because some people have experienced all sorts of unspeakable things in the hands of men in their lives. So we are focusing on this concept of positive masculinity. Not to say that masculinity in itself is not good enough at its core, but we're now making people focus on the positive sides of it.
Absolutely.
So that's also an important part of the brand, and so that it's not like we're just simply a brand that are just again gathering men, because there's lots of men's clubs, lots of membership brands, but we want to be a brand that is responsible. No one is perfect, but we want a scenario where we're not hearing that someone who is part of Hunters and Sons lifestyle collective, like the membership, we're hoping to not hear that such people are, assaulting women or misusing their masculinity the wrong ways. That doesn't mean anyone is perfect. So there's room to grow, but we don't want people who are like repeatedly doing terrible things in the name of their masculinity. So that's just what the brand is, the lifestyle collective is about. Yeah.
I really love that, because the repeated behavior is the actual issue.
Yeah, it's the actual issue.
It's the actual issue half of the time, right? You do something once, I think most anybody can forgive, most anybody, reasonably, to the extent that it's reasonable, right? We can forgive, right? And I don't say we as in women now, I just mean anybody else, generally, right? Like just generally, right? But then it's the repeated behavior, it's the repeated lack of, understanding that this is not acceptable behavior and those kind of things. So, okay, all right. So you have this membership now. Because when I think about membership, for some of these kind of things, I honestly feel people should sign. Like, you should sign. These are the core values we expect, we want to see. Again, not because anybody's perfect, but because how do you kind of monitor, right? Like, you want to see somebody's growth, and this is not like a church where, in that sense, maybe the person is there for 10 years. Someone can even go and come back, but still say they're Hunters and Sons person, right? They embody what Hunters and Sons mean. So how do you guys go about that?
I'm happy you asked that, because we are officially launching the membership this year.
Okay.
That should be around the summer, but one thing that I've been working my ass off on, I've been working with 2 lawyers and 1 more person. Guess who the last person is?
Psychologist?
ChatGPT. 2 lawyers and ChatGPT.
I love it.
Working around I'm trying to find the word to use, the requirements and some bylaws to be a member, right? And like you rightfully said, the idea is not to say that anyone is perfect, but it's to say that there's a standard. So some of the things that we've put in the membership is to say that hunters are by default providers, right? So that's why anyone who's a member, anyone who decides to be a member, because we're not pointing a gun to anyone's head to be a member, right?
Maybe we should.
So we're saying anyone who decides to be a member, it means they're willing to partake in 1 or 2 or in a couple of our charity outreaches that are going to happen every year. So we want people to understand that the membership is not about what it gives you, it's about what you bring. It's about what you bring. So it's like, how are you looking to inspire not just men, but even like just the rest of the world generally? Like, how are you looking to inspire people? So that's what we're looking at. How are you looking to inspire people? How do you want to give back to society? Right. Because when you look at our events that we're having, they look they look somewhat fancy. Everyone is dressed up nicely. A lot of nice. But how do we get this message to the streets? How do we get it to like the grassroots, you know? And to do that, we need able men who are willing to partake in that. So in terms of like the moral code of conduct, it's not like a law, like if you don't, but it's just more like, this is what we're hoping we get from people who are members. And the only kind of, what do I call it, like I guess, moral code that we had to make into a law in the contracts for members is that if during one's time of membership they are found guilty of GBV, their membership is immediately terminated. There is room and possibility for them to rejoin, but that is after they go through reorientation and all these kind of programs that enable people to but they would have to go through an accredited, I don't know what they call it, but program. A program that educates them, enlightens them, because again, we're not saying anyone is perfect, but we're just saying we have standards, and that's very important, because if you stand for nothing, you fall for anything.
Absolutely, 120%.
And I think the only reason why I'm very particular about it specifically is because there's already that thing where when people hear that men alone gather somewhere, it's like, what they do. So for us, it's like, when we men are gathering, I don't want it to be a thing where it's now said years after that, oh, that place is just a place where all sorts of debauchery just goes down, these guys that are part of this thing, they beat their wives, they do this one, they do that one. It's all sorts of bad things, so no one is perfect again, but some standards have to be there,
I like that. And I don't, it's funny, I do the opposite. When I hear men are gathering, I'm just hoping that you guys are having vulnerable conversations, right? You're actually having vulnerable, because, okay, let's be honest, right? There are very many situations where it's the man beating the woman. But what happens when it's the woman beating the man, antagonizing the man to the point where, again, not to say that he should react, but I've heard of stories where he's just even trying to get away.
100%.
And then it becomes a thing, right? And it's automatically considered that, it's the guy that did that, right? But there's also more than just that. I think even understanding what you're saying about providing, because there are a lot of women who come at you with, yes, there's that expectation of men are supposed to provide. And then I feel like there are a few of us who are like, I don't need you to buy me Birkin. I just need you to be working. We'll pull together, right? And that kind of thing. And I think there needs to be certain conversations around that.
100%.
Because on the flip side, it's this idea that, all women are gold diggers. We're seeing more and more that men too are going with women who are providing.
So men are being strategic,
being very, very strategic.
Men are moving strategically.
Are we having those conversations? And that's what I'm hoping that this is doing, right? Are we talking to mental health experts? So sex is not the whole thing, the whole world, right? Can you control your urges? So I'm saying this kind of platform gives, I think, men a good, I'm hoping, a well-rounded perspective. But like you said, now you're talking to reasonably, I think, enough, middle class people. A lot of the guys who are probably in need of this conversation are kind of below your status, for lack of a better term. They're the ones we see on the streets who we can help become better and become resourceful.
Definitely.
How are we having that conversation?
I think it's simple. It's to start organizing events. It's one of my friends, and I was like, I hope you know that soon we're going to start having, because we have this men's brunch is like our flagship products, right? Where it's just simply all men. Apart from like mixed events, we have the ladies come for too. But for men's brunch, I was like, I know, we're going to start having men's brunch soon in certain areas that are like less privileged areas, and it's like, I'm not following into that one. I'm like, Now, I know it was like a joking thing, but if you want to be a member and you have that mentality, then we'll likely not accept you. Because we want people who are willing to give back. Giving back is not simply about money. It's giving back values, giving back resources. So I think that simply to put it, the best way is by organizing events, charity drives. Nigeria is not in a fantastic place for the average person, financially speaking, which is why you want to organize these outreaches where people get to eat. You can maybe give them some grants or pay for them to do courses, because you don't just want to give them money. People who come from a certain, social class, right? Sometimes you don't just want to give them money because you spend it. You want to give them a skill, which is why we're also opening what we call master classes for artisans, people who can actually learn a skill. Because that is a true way to teach someone how to hunt. You teach them the skill. You don't just say, okay, here is this money, and they spend it and they come back to you again. So these are the ways we want to do it, because just to be talking, these guys are hungry. what are you giving them any actionable? So which is why like in the near future, when I mean near future, I mean like in a couple 1 or 2 months, we're launching our charity foundation. And we're hoping to like get a lot of people on board, corporate organizations as well, because we can't do it alone by ourselves, right? To just start this movement of really empowering men to be hunters. You know, that's the plan. We want to like do as much as we can, and it starts somewhere because it's easier said than done, honestly speaking. But that is the core of the brand. Hunts provide play. You know, we have to provide. We have to provide not just for men, by the way, women too. Whether it's widows, whether it's orphans, like you know, men and women.
Hey everyone, if you're enjoying the podcast, please don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, or share button. Whether you're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube, your support helps us to reach more people. Stay tuned for more amazing conversations, and thank you for being a part of our community. Do you have any particular success story from any of the men you've interacted with so far?
Yeah. Okay. So to be fair, it's actually 2022 that we launched the events.
Okay.
2022 that we launched the events, and since that time I've definitely seen so much evolving, you know. And I think we'd gone on a break for like a year. We actually just got back like 2 months ago when we did an International Women's Day celebration, and now we've done Men's Brunch. So when we were away for like a year, I didn't realize the impact it had on people. I mean, I know people always said, oh, this was great, it was a unique thing happening, blah, 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 but during that time, people legit coming up to me like, what's happening? Like, we need this, like, you know, we need this space, we need this and that.
Yeah.
So when we had our first men's brunch in like a year, just 2 days ago, and seeing the joy of people who'd been following up, like, when are we having it again? And in that time, like, hearing them just like journal how the event has actually impacted them positively, about the values they've applied in their everyday lives, from a business perspective, from a character building perspective. Like, just after the men's happened, I think I got like 2 calls from attendees, and they were talking about how like the brand has really impacted them over time. The kind of conversations we have, the fact that we create spaces for men to speak on things, but at the same time, not judge them after. You know, so I feel like men are now seeing that they can actually form a community of men and talk about these things. So it's like, if you want to talk about football, that's great. I love football myself. You know,
Arsenal or
Man U, that's a shame. Man U is shambolic right now.
Very, very shambolic.
Man
But
U
okay.
shambolic right now. You know, so it's like, if you want to talk about football, that's great. You want to talk about the girls you like or you have a crush on or money you want to make, that's great. But what about the things that men are hiding, the things that are driving some men to suicide? Because when you look at the statistics, right, in the last couple of years, it's very more likely that men have committed more suicides than women. So it's like, let us have those conversations. So when men are now saying that they are able to have those kind of conversations, that is success, because men are actually really opening up, and that's the way that we can problem share is the problem solved. So I feel like that has been a success mostly of the men's branch and the community we've been building of men. So yeah, that's been a success mostly.
Why did you stop for a year?
I just stopped because it wasn't even intentional. It wasn't meant to be up to it. It's just that I always have a lot going on. It's like, outside of Hunters and Sons, there's many other things I do. So I just got caught in the different things I was doing, and I'm a victim of perfectionism as well. Sometimes, you know, it's like, I had staff. I mean, all those past years, I had some people that worked like on a part-time basis with the brand, and it always felt like if I didn't ensure that they deliver things to quality, it would go to shreds. So I had to pause it and get more people on board who can help me interpret my vision. So it's not only me constantly doing everything, because I'd rather work alone than to work with 4 people who don't understand what I'm trying to do. Because now the time I could have spent pouring into the brand, I have to be pouring it into explaining what they should do.
Welcome to the life of being an entrepreneur.
Exactly. So I think it was just a thing of capacity. But taking that break enabled me to actually build a proper structure. Because, you know, where the brand is going, by God's grace, it's a place where it's going to be really massive. And it's not just about being massive for being massive sake, but it's more about the impact it's going to have on people. And for it to get there, capacity is needed, like, you know. So I had to use that time to research how to like lay proper structures for the brand, get people who can actually do what I tell them to do.
Yeah.
Not the ones you say A and they do Z. The ones that would actually follow through what you say and
No, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I know I interrupted your thought there, but I was gonna say, so do you like people who do, if you tell them to do A, they do A exactly without any deviation? So even if what you're telling them to do doesn't make sense, or maybe it's not working out, and so ideally they should be flexible and try and pivot, but because you told them to do A, they only want to do A. Do you like those kind of people, or do you like people who know how to pivot?
I feel like those ones who know how to pivot, if they see that A is not really working out and they find a better idea, that's different. But there's the ones who you tell them to do A and they do C, and the C is not even done well. C has no context or relation with A, so it's like it's taking more out of you.
Yeah, fair enough.
So,
fair enough.
I'd always been a lone hunter for the last couple of years, but I feel like taking that break enabled me to like start to pick people that we can use to run the brand on a longer term basis, because we have to look at the future, we have to look at legacy. So that had been a big concern for me. It's like, this brand is expanding, we need to get people on board. So that was one of the reasons why I took a break, because I was doing so much by myself, not because I couldn't get people, but I felt like I wasn't getting people who would be able to execute it the way. And I've had to learn to also be patient and just like getting people to understand a vision as well.
Yeah, you have to build people up. Nobody can know it like you do. And it's funny that you use the word lone hunter, because that's typically a man's problem. So it's funny that you're experiencing the thing you're trying to solve for.
Exactly.
I think that's really, really
Experience
cool.
the best teacher.
Exactly. Experience is, and I think it will obviously further everything that it is that you're trying to do now, because you also know that we men, and I feel like to some extent, some kind of women, we fall into that thing. We go back. We retreat to that nature of being a lone hunter. But really, the most successful packs are not lone hunters, right?
100%.
And okay.
100%.
All right. So speaking of then, what are the values that move you? Like, what are your core values, you would say?
That's a good one. I think my core values are integrity. And I would never speak of integrity in a way to say that like I'm the most integral person. It's not about me being the most whatever. It's more about me striving to become a person of more integrity. So integrity is a value that I hold dearly. Integrity, authenticity. I say authenticity in the sense of like just being true to yourself. Being able to say, this is who I am, and I'm not hurting anybody, I'm not killing anybody, this is just who I am. I'm being comfortable to do that, because when you're in spaces like this, and when I mean spaces like this, I mean like parts of the world, like maybe, I don't know if it's a Nigerian thing or an African thing, but sometimes not everyone always finds it easy to just say, this is who I am. It's not everyone that allows people to see them for who they truly are. More time, it feels like they are trying to fit the image of what society has told them. So, I felt like authenticity is very important. Authenticity, integrity, resilience, perseverance, You have to be that kind of person who, getting knocked down is inevitable, but you bounce back. You bounce back. If you get knocked down and it really hurts, you can take your time, you can cry, you can feel your pain, feel your feels, but after that, you get back on your feet, keep moving, then faith. Faith is very important. Faith is very important. Faith in itself, just being able to believe things before they even come to pass.
Hallelujah.
That's very powerful. And shout out to God for like building me into being that kind of person. Faith is really important, because it's kind of like, obviously not everyone may necessarily be people of faith or Christians, right? But at the end of the day, one thing I find beautiful about faith, and when I mean faith, I don't mean faith as per religion, but faith in believing that what you want to do happen, is that even God, He requires of us to believe. It's easier to like achieve more things with God when you partner with Him to believe. But if like God is giving you like massive visions that are like really great, and you're just like constantly wallowing in self-doubt, you're constantly questioning if you can do it, and God is just there like, come on, like, so it's easier to get things done with God when you have faith, no matter how small it is. So I feel like that has been a very daring quality of me. I've always been audacious from a very young age, from climbing trees to inventing my self-made parachutes, trying to jump from the balcony of our house downstairs, trying to create my own NEPA pole. I got a stick. I was about to plug the wire into the circuit. I think it was the chef back then when I was a kid. I just yanked me away from there.
Oh,
I've always been audacious. I've always from creating my bombs with banger and
oh
all
God.
sorts of things. But we had to be audacious. So
Yeah.
audacity, perseverance, resilience, faith,
Integrity.
integrity, and
Authenticity.
authenticity. I think these are really important.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So who are your own mentors?
Honestly, I don't have any individual. I don't have that one mentor. I'll be very honest. I don't have that one mentor. I believe in mentorship though, which is why I enjoy picking brains of people who have like been in places that they may not be in the exact place that I want to be, but they have an idea of it.
Yeah.
Or they've been in similar places. So I'm very big on having conversations with people. But some people like the part where they have that one person that they just, and that's not me.
Okay.
I'm not big on putting people on pedestals.
Fair enough.
I'd rather like talk to 7 people, and from those 7 I'll pick out the one that I like from the 7, and I'll merge everything together.
Yeah.
As opposed to just putting like a specific person on the pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay, so then if not mentors, are there any, like, do you do more documentary and biography and those kind of, like, you're reading from others and that kind of thing? Because I know a lot of men are like you. I feel like they won't say they have this one person, but they've read all the books on, this, or they read all the books on that, whether it's a person. Like, one of my friends is Arsene Wenger, like, really. Like, he's read everything about Arsene Wenger.
Right.
That's his own quote-unquote mentor.
Yeah.
So do you have anybody like that? Maybe it's not, physical, but it's somebody, some people I know it's Barack Obama, everything, Barack, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Right. I have to think about that deeper. But what I will say though is that I definitely have things that I've read and people I've come across that have undoubtedly inspired me for sure. I definitely do. And they stem across different areas, whether it's maybe it could be like a businessman, it could be an athlete, like, as far as athletes are concerned, I love Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay.
And one reason why I love Cristiano Ronaldo as an athlete is because he's not just simply an athlete, but he is a personality. He's the symbolism of resilience, of like craftsmanship, hard work.
Right.
So Cristiano
Not
Ronaldo.
Messi.
Say what?
Not Messi.
I love Messi too, but more Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah.
Fair enough.
More Messi. So Cristiano Ronaldo in that sense of like athletes and everything. If I now think about like, okay, I look at like in the fashion sense, in lifestyle, entertainment, there's definitely lots of people that I'm like big ups. Like I take inspiration from some things they do, but I really don't have that one person, honestly speaking.
Fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, so yes, we haven't actually talked about the fashion part of it now. So we talked about the community now. There's the lifestyle, and I guess when you say lifestyle, we're starting with fashion for now, right? Because I feel like lifestyle is, fashion, food, all of that. It encompasses a lot. So now it's fashion, and so what are you trying to do with that? And why fashion?
Good one. That's a good one. I feel like I'm trying to articulate what I'm about to say, but I know you understand it. There's a way you can like not judge people by their appearance, but at the same time, sometimes the way people dress can give you an idea of their psyche before you speak to them. You can go to a supermarket right now and you can see someone that's like shirts, belts, pants, shoes, everything. And you can see somebody else that just wore like a baggy shirt and just a shorts. And you may just pick up more vibes from the one with the baggy shirts and the shorts. Right. So it's not really about dressing too much, but in a sense, it's kind of like, so this, in my opinion, doesn't apply to everyone, but for some people, the way they dress and the way they carry themselves is also a reflection of like their level of enlightenment, so fashion is a way to empower people, to give them more confidence, for them to understand that with fashion, it's not really always about like rocking the most, it's not about rocking 5 chains and, rocking the biggest high tops and all of that. It's just about the sophistication behind it. So it's like we're using fashion to like I guess like give people a sense of taste. And when I say people, it even includes myself because ever since I got into the fashion part of it, it had always been the vision of the brand from the onset. So from that beginning stage that I told you about having the idea of the brand, it was to be a men's clothing line, fashion line and everything. So that was always the idea. And to build a community as well. But the idea of the fashion is just really simple. It's just to like expand the minds of people because fashion is a tool to expand the minds of people. Sometimes you can see someone somewhere and maybe the person has dreads. They have dreads, they have a chain or two on, they have like maybe some nice streetwear t-shirt and the way you just perceive that person, it's that kind of person you want to engage with. Because how they've dressed up and carried themselves, it's opened the door for them that they're not even aware of. Because such people or person decided to be authentic, right?
Yeah,
so if you saw that kind of person in a suit and tie, they might look very off. You may not even want to engage with them, but because you see them unapologetically rocking their dreads and whatever they're wearing, you feel like there must be more behind the outfit, behind the way they carry themselves. There must be more behind it. So I feel like fashion allows people to express themselves, and we're just creating that avenue, so that's what it's really about. It's not just about just buying something for buying sake. It allows you that room to express yourself, like this is who I am, this is how I want to express myself, this is my style, so I think you're just creating that outlet for people to be able to do that.
Okay, is it just for men?
Oh, no, it's a unisex line.
Okay.
Unisex line, yeah.
And are we doing dollars? Are we doing those kind of prices? Because I'm struggling here. I'm really struggling. And I think for me, that's like, how do no offense.
Yeah,
like,
no, of course.
No, not to you. I'm just saying in general to anybody who's, because I'm just going to go back to Shein. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you are stressing me out with these prices you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, and obviously, you can say for EFCC sake that you're doing no, exactly. But I'm just saying that, what is it, maybe you can tell me because you're starting new. What is it about these prices? And people, the response that I typically get is, oh, well, this is not the clientele. So they're basically looking for people who are across the country who are then paying for shipping. But there are people here who can rock your
100%.
clothes. So I'm trying to understand, like, maybe I'm just cheap. And I don't think I am.
I think the reason why is because, I'll give you an example. Okay, let's just talk about some brands, some Nigerian brands, right? There's a possibility that they are, in terms of craftsmanship, they are producing outfits that are as good as some foreign brands. And maybe the foreign brand is collecting maybe $200 for a dress. And maybe based on Nigerian prices, right, you convert $200 to Naira, that's like 320K, something like that. So it seems relatively expensive for the
But usually that's not the case. They're charging you $500 for something that you will see at $200. So what's that about?
So the reason why is because I don't just go into any business or anything without doing my research, right? So upon doing my research, I realized that the fashion industry in Nigeria, it has so much potential. All sorts of fabrics and name it are in Nigeria. So if you go online right now, you buy a Ralph Lauren, and maybe you buy it for maybe $150, for example. For that kind of cotton that they use for the shirts, or that type of linen, I promise you it's in Nigeria.
Okay.
If you go to certain markets like Tejo or Lagos Island, you find some of those fabric. So what some of these people are doing is that they are now having the balls to make these kind of products that certain brands would make. And they are now saying, I'm not going to make a copy of them and or make a fake. I'll make my own. And I would make it well branded, intentionally put out there, and I'll make it cheaper. So now people in diaspora would buy them because they're buying a similar quality to all these different reputable brands, but they're buying them for a somewhat cheaper price. It's just that for the Nigerian market and economy, it still feels bonkers, right? Because Naira is obviously, Naira is Naira, so I think the reason why is just to say that they found that people living abroad at the moment, people in diaspora and wherever else really, they are more than glad to these things because even though for the average Nigerian, or I mean, I wouldn't categorize you like economically speaking as an average Nigerian, but
I
still.
am the average Nigerian.
Nah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe the average Islander, but not the average Nigerian. Not the average Nigerian.
Please.
But for the average Nigerian.
We're praying it's coming. Okay, you know what?
Yeah.
In Jesus' name, I am not the average Nigerian. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. But for the typical Nigerian shopper, they're not going to pay XYZ amounts.
Yeah.
So that's what I found. Because I have a friend of mine. I think you'd actually like her. Maybe I'll try and see how I can get you to interview her.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, she lives in Canada. But
Okay,
anyway,
nice.
so she's created a niche where she shops Nigerian ready-to-wear brands and everything, and she loves to shop them. And she realized that they are somewhat cheaper than if she was to buy from some American brands or Canadian brands or whatever else brands. So they are, from the Nigerian standpoint, they are like really expensive. But for someone buying from there, it's like, it's still somewhat cheaper than there's there.
Yeah.
But for my brand though, it's crazy you asked this question because as I was on the way here, for whatever weird reason, I was thinking about the fashion line and I'm like, I need to create a diverse range of products.
Yes.
You know,
That's all I'm saying.
that allows people from different, financial backgrounds to buy.
Right.
I don't want anyone to feel left out.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to feel
That's
left
what
out.
I'm saying. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe what it is certain things as you were saying about like style, so it's two things. I think that I'm not, my pocket is not ready for the fashion that I want. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
And then, in the interim, I'm also very comfortable. Like, that's what I've heard that a lot. I hear people tell me that a lot because everybody's like, oh, you should dress like this and you should dress like that. And I'm like, I'm comfortable. Like, for me, I'm comfortable however way I'm dressing. And I say all of this to say that, I think while style can help, and I think it does to your point, sometimes with the confidence, sometimes with passing on the message, I think I'll use myself as an example. The fact that I'm comfortable, whatever I'm wearing, right? I think that expresses itself.
Right,
So whether I'm in a boo-boo or whether I'm in something a lot more sophisticated, I think there's a balance, right? There's a balance with, like you said, authenticity, who you are, and that is going to show forth in how you dress. But people can also wear the outfit and not be comfortable, and you can tell, right?
Exactly.
And I think that's really
That's what I was saying earlier.
Yes, exactly. So you have to, it's the key of, making sure you're not wearing the style just to, and then not be comfortable. It has to be your style.
It has to be what you really want to get.
And I think that therein lies that whole thing about even the financial, financial thing to fashion. Anyways, I really love this. So this is launching when?
It's launching in June, ending of June. However, we're having a physical pop-up for Nigeria because we're launching it in different countries simultaneously.
Okay.
But we're starting with Nigeria in June and later on in the UK and South Africa as well. Okay. And wherever else after that.
All right. Yeah. So do we have a location for the pop-up or people who just come online?
No, we have a location.
Okay. You want to share it or?
We're going to announce it in 3 days time.
Okay, cool. All right. We won't, what's it called? We won't spoil the surprise. Make sure you follow him on HS Lifestyle.
Yeah, hslifestyle.co and Hunters and Sons.
Okay, and Hunters and Sons. Okay, awesome. All right, so we talked about a lot of these things, but I want us to go back again really quickly to what we talked about masculinity. And let's talk a little bit about toxic masculinity, because you were trying to make a point about the fact that there's positive masculinity. Why can I not talk? But then there's the toxic one, which really you see a lot in America. They talk about more with the incel culture, right? Yeah, the ones you're seeing who are killing, girls, women, all of that. Particularly because they feel like, well, that one person. So the last episode of, I think it was FBI. I watched. So basically, the guy was mad that he was talking to a girl and the girl didn't respond to him on one of these apps, and then he changes his picture on the app, and then the girl comes and then he burns the girl. Anyways, my point just being we're seeing a lot of that. I don't particularly think that we have the incel culture in Nigeria. Maybe it's just hidden, but I do feel like the opposite of it is that, rather than incel culture, we're seeing, the woman should stay in the bedroom, and women should do this and women should do that, and
so
exactly. And I wonder, from your perspective and from some of the work that you're doing now, apart from just, for example, what it is that you're doing, creating that community, what other ways do we start to change that narrative? So, and because fortunately or unfortunately, you're meeting people when they're already older. And I think, this is my theory, that a lot of these things are formed before they ever meet you. So how do we get them before they ever meet you in their 20s, in their, like, I'm talking primary school, I'm talking secondary school. What is the conversation that needs to be had? And how do we have it?
That's regarding like toxic.
Yes, yeah.
I think the answers are very easy in my opinion. It's come from societal values, i.e. culture.
Yeah.
Religion. Religion is one of the major culprits of toxic masculinity. Religion is probably the top one, actually. Religion, because religion influences culture as well. Yeah, religion. Religion.
You sound like you have personal experience.
Honestly, it's not even, I don't know how to explain it. It's not even me per se, but I've just taken my time to really think about it. And speaking as someone who's a Christian, right, I can still say without a doubt that religion has played a massive role. Religion, culture, and societal conditioning. These three layers. And I'll give you practical examples. I think with culture now, for example, right, you find that from a very young age, mothers brought up their kids in a way where, or not just mothers, parents. Instead of parents teach their kids that cooking is a life survival skill.
Yes.
They are preparing the women for cooking so that they'll cook for the girls for cooking, so they'll cook for their husbands when they grow up. And I prefer the homes where maybe they were telling the girls to cook and they were telling the guys to wash the cars. At least they're doing something. Yeah. But there's some homes where the girls are cooking and the guys are watching football. It's easier to like, what's that word? To see eye to eye with someone who's still doing something. Even if it's that they made it more like it's the woman that should be in the kitchen and it's the men that should sweep the floor and wash the cars, but at least they're doing something. Yeah. But what about the homes where the guys are not doing anything at all and the women are just, and these women are their sisters. Yeah. And they're being trained to prepare for their husband's home. So these are things that are like, what's that word? Subconsciously drilled into people from a younger age. And so that's also where it's come from, and that is culture, right? Yeah. The religious part of it is where a lot of, what do you call it, older male figures would tell women and younger ones like, women should submit to their husbands, or use that kind of instance. And even that, the scripture was totally taken out of context. Right. It was never to say that the woman should be a slave. No, it was never said. In fact, like it says submit to one another before it goes into women submit. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a part where, from the religious front, a lot of people have taken that out of context. Yeah. So there's a cultural aspect that I've mentioned, and the religious aspect as well. There's just societal conditioning. Yeah. So I feel like the ways to break out of it starts from, like you said, catching them young. Yeah. But even before they grow older, there's still hope. I know many people, like we spoke to many guys at the men's brunch. They mentioned how there were ways that they saw life before and after. Before being like maybe just 5 years ago, 10 years ago, after being now. And these are grown-ass men. Yeah. So it shows that there's actually hope. I agree. There's still hope. I do think, I've always said that the human brain is not fully formed until you're 25. So hopefully you're catching them before they're 25. Now, with that said, we are all able to learn and unlearn. The brain is really that capable to, exactly. There's something that this woman, Dr. Caroline Leaf, she talks about basically this idea that your brain can be reformed, basically. 100%. So I do agree with that. Okay. You talked now about, you guys had done a Women's Day event. Yeah. So why is it important to have women be involved in this conversation? And what do you think women let's just use that event. Yeah. What were women saying? What did they want men to hear? That's a good one. I think why women are important in these kind of events is it starts with the brand, right? As men, we talk about making society better, but who are we within society? It's men and women. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we speak of society as if like some aliens live with us or something. Like, it's men and women. Yeah. maybe husband or wife, maybe just friends, brother and sister, colleagues, but it's men and women. So, you know, I mean, whenever I go out, like, whether it just be restaurants, right? Whether it's restaurants or just wherever it might be, you find that, like, well, using Nigeria as an example, male and female interactions drive a lot of things, including industries. If you go to a restaurant now, majority of the pairings are going to be men and women. If you go to lounges, men and women. So it just shows you, and that's literally like a very small sample I'm using of many bigger instances I can use, right? But the point is that men and women drive the world. So when we're saying we want to be better men, women need to be part of the conversation. Or not necessarily the men's branch, because the men's branch is men only, obviously. But when we started it, I remember how like several ladies would hit me up, and some would like reach out to the page and be like, oh, how can women come for this? We want to be part of this, blah, blah, blah. I remember my team sharing it with me, and I'm like, it's a men's thing, right? But later on, we're like, you know what? It actually makes sense. If we're calling ourselves hunters, right? We want to hunt and provide for ourselves, for our families, for society, and who are the people in our families and society, men and women. So now we're like, you know what, let's start doing stuff like International Women's Day. Let's do mixer events that have men and women involved. So for like this International Women's Day, this is actually our second one. The first one we had was during the year that we launched the brand, and it's been very insightful. As per discussions, we had Isoya, she's a gender inclusion advocates for women. We had FK Abudu of, I said what I said. We had Akudo Ihenacho, we had Ka. And what I liked about these women that we had was like, they had some similarities, but there were also differences in terms of what they were doing. But what they all had in common was that they are women who are out there. They are achieving, they're thriving, and they all come from different walks of life and everything. So it's kind of like, when you gather women like this, you expect the conversations to be rich, right? Because, for example, I was talking about how men can support women more, and she's someone who was speaking as a wife. How husbands can support it. It wasn't about married people per se, but you get my point. Like, how men can support women more. She spoke about how her husband really pushed her. Like, even in times that she had maybe some issues with self-esteem, her husband really pushed her, encouraged her. Kudo, she also spoke about like, what women have, she also spoke about her husband being encouraging, but even just beyond that, she spoke about what women go through in the workforce, because she's an entrepreneur as well, right? She's the co-founder of Gather House. Gather House, Reclaim Wellness. So she spoke about how, for example, when she was trying to pitch the business to different potential investors, right? They would just try and make jokes around them being women, or try to crack jokes with them, make them laugh, compliment them, but it's kind of like focus on the proposals we're bringing. Like, don't focus on it being me being a woman. And so them sharing these kind of insights, or Ijama Adesanya speaking about how like what success meant for women. Like what does it really mean to be a successful woman, right? What are the criteria you use? Or is it FK Abudu talking about how like women should not be put in boxes when they do things that men are doing as well? It's like, why do you categorize the one that the woman is doing, but for the men it's like, oh well, men do it already. So having those kind of discussions were very productive, and in the Q&A there was a bit of like, some men toss some questions, the girls give it back, and those kind of dialogues are very important, right? Some people don't like conversations where there's too much of disagreements, and I feel like such conversations are fugazi. There needs to be some disagreements. There needs to be a bit of locking of horns, because that's how you know that the conversation is really hitting. So it was a rich conversation. I want to do more of that. Have more women in our spaces, because like it's basically women telling us men about their POV, how they live as women, but it's also like giving us insights on how we can do things better. So it was a really great event, and we want to do more of that. Like, ladies always love when they come for our events, and we always love to have them as well. Like, it's a mutual thing, because I have to give it to women. Like, you lot really do lots of these things already, right? You find more women organizing these initiatives, things to empower each other. They do it a lot more than men. So I feel like a lot of women who've come for our events, they recognize that men don't really do these things. So it's like, there's some guys There's a guy that came for the men's brunch 2 days ago and he's like, oh, my wife saw it and she was like, you must be here. There's another lady that my social media manager told me that apparently she bought a ticket like, oh, I'm buying this for my boyfriend. I wanted to come. So like, you know, it
That's
just
awesome.
shows that we need each other. That's the truth, you know.
Exactly.
So we are not for the, you know, we are not for that hyper, you know, that like hyper masculinity, hyper
Yes,
femininity.
exactly.
I mean, I don't believe in that. You know? I don't believe in it on both sides.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
be a man, be a woman,
Yeah.
but you don't have to do it in a way that is looking to deem the other one or bring the other one
Absolutely.
down. We can coexist. Two truths can yeah,
Absolutely.
can be true. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've heard to say two truths can be.
Well, I don't know about the truth. I don't know that anything can be true apart from the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, you know, somebody saying, oh, you cheated, you didn't cheat. Like, it's
Oh,
one...
no,
I'm just giving that as a very random example.
Yeah,
or, you know, that kind of thing. Like, I do think that there's one truth. Maybe the Christian in me also thinks that there's... But two views, I think, right? Like, can coexist.
Yeah.
Right? So I often see... For example, as you were talking about, you know, a woman can be a woman, and I consider myself somewhat of an alpha female in that sense. Like I'm the first child, so I'm strong, I'm this, I can do it, I'm very, very independent.
Yeah.
But please give me food in bed
No, I
too.
get
Once
it.
in a while, you know,
Yeah.
like, once in a while. For example, and I think I said it in my last recording, I don't know anything about the house. I don't want to know. Like, I really don't want to. Like, if he's traveling, he needs to make plans for me while, you know, that kind of thing. So two truths can exist in that sense, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's what you were trying to say.
Yeah, in that context where like women can be pro-woman and men can be pro-woman, but also love, basically where people could be pro their gender and
Yes.
love the other gender.
Exactly.
So those are the two
Exactly.
truths that can. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Like, it's not fight. You know,
Exactly.
but you know, there's that saying. You know, I'm Yoruba, like
Yeah.
tribe-wise, and there's that saying in Yoruba. I don't know how they say it I don't know how to say it in Yoruba, but they say like, "Let us fight each other so we can agree." Or something like,
I'm
"Let's
not
fight each
saying
other
Yoruba
so
too,
both
but
can
yes,
work." It's
yes.
kind of like, let's work it out.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's why I feel like those dialogues are very important. It's
Yeah.
not just to come and look nice and look fine and everyone's
Yeah.
you know, like to actually have every now and then, of course, some difficult conversations. So I feel like events like these, because you'd find that some people are not very confrontational. One is not saying you should fight everybody,
Yeah.
but you should be able to have uncomfortable conversations. So I feel like having such events created that room for uncomfortable conversations that yield productive results.
Exactly. I love it. Okay. Final question. Well, final serious question.
Right.
What is your message to men who might be listening to this? And let me say it to women. I do feel like my population is also largely women, but I do have a few men, and I find that, you know, they're on both sides. There's some very, I would say, alpha men that listen, but I do have people I consider tender men. Right? They're not the confrontational type. They're not the, you know, so how do you encourage both?
Yeah.
So I want you to talk to the three things: the alpha men, quote unquote, the tender men, and then the woman on the platform.
Okay, so the alpha men, the tender men, and the woman. What I'll say to all of you is let's listen to each other. It's pretty simple. Do more listening, yeah, and less speaking. It's simple as that.
I love it.
Yeah, just listen first. And sometimes when you just take that extra 10 seconds, 15 seconds just to listen and not interject the other person, you now realize that maybe that follow-up question you were planning to ask, you don't need to ask it anymore.
Yeah.
So let's listen to each other and let's, like, you know, relax on the ego. Like, you know, let's relax on the ego. And I get it, like, we all fall victims to our ego, right? But if we can just try, it's not always easy, but if we can try to just, like, listen and sacrifice our ego for the greater picture, I think everyone can get along.
I love it. Okay, we have what we call rapid fire questions before you then get to ask me a question. So I hope you've thought about your question. All right, who would you love to have dinner with, dead or alive?
Dead or alive? Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay. Favorite city you've ever visited?
Favorite city? That's a tough one.
Country.
I think I will still live in a city.
Okay.
Flip. That's a tough one. That's actually tough. That's tough.
Favorite city you visited in the past year?
In the past year, I've
Yeah.
been in Lagos.
Okay. In the past 5 years.
In the past, okay, generally speaking, let me just say my favorite city is a blend of London and Cape Town.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I was expecting Cape Town, actually.
Yeah, it's a blend of London and Cape Town. If it could be London but with mountains.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Beaches,
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
Okay, first thing you do when you wake up.
When I wake up, just lay for like a couple more minutes, I think. That's the first thing I do. I kind of like reboot for some extra like seconds or minutes now.
Fair enough.
On the task, on the job.
One item you can't leave home without.
My comb.
Oh yeah, you beard gang.
That's my bed.
What's one thing most people don't know about you?
Phew, that's a good one. I don't think we'll deep how adventurous I am. People that know me know that I'm going all of that.
Yeah.
But my algorithm is not about like Zaza and Bo every night. It's not like, I mean, I like a good night out here and there, but it's more like actual adventure.
Yeah.
Like I would do skydiving. There's this thing I came across, this activity. I forgot what it's, okay. It's kind of like wingsuits.
Yes,
You can
I've seen
fly
it.
through. I want to do that.
Yeah, same actually.
Oh,
I've been
wow.
wanting to do it. No, seriously, I've been wanting to do it. I just keep forgetting when I travel to
Like
do
I'm
it.
a daredevil.
I would do that kind of thing.
I love adventure.
I was wanting to do skydiving, and then the older I got, and I think this is why sometimes you should just do things when you're younger. I feel like if I had done skydiving and bungee jumping when I was much younger, then it'd be fine. Now I'm like, do you really?
Can you see old people doing it?
Fair enough.
So
But
people-
you know what? If I was gonna do it, I'll do tandem. I don't think I can do it on my own anymore. Like honestly, I feel like it's just one of the things of getting older and then just being a little bit more cautious. Maybe not afraid, but more cautious about life.
But
Okay.
you're still, I mean, you're not in your 40s now. You still have.
I'm almost.
Yeah, but there's still, yeah.
No, it's like months.
Yeah, but still, because I've seen like, you know, on some adventurous activities
Shows
I've
and
been
stuff,
on,
yeah.
right? I've seen older people like,
Yeah.
I remember sometime I was going on this really steep hike, and I saw like old people in their 80s and they were hiking, and these are hikes that it can take you like maybe 2.5 hours to get to the top.
Yeah.
Another 2.5
Maybe I
hours
have
to
to
come
come
back
down.
down.
No, I can
see
hike.
old people.
I will never say I can hike. I will hike.
Yeah.
It's still different than being in the air. And I think what it is I've also been traveling a lot. I had been traveling a lot. And like being in the plane, and even the plane is doing just you're just like, why are you now going to bungee jump or skydive? So I think that's really what it is. Okay, you get to ask me one question.
Only one.
Only one. Well, you can ask me more, but let's start with one. Let's see.
What's your favorite quality since like the theme of this conversation came around masculinity?
Yes.
What's your favorite quality about men? Or your favorites?
Okay. I think you actually spoke about a bunch of them. One I would add, and I think it's just a thing for me, is honesty.
Honesty.
Like, I just be honest. And I'm a straight shooter.
Right.
So tell me what it is, like, even the bad. Just don't hide it.
Right, yeah.
I'd rather deal with it straightforward or straight on than what's it called? I think you said integrity. I tell my husband all the time, if you tell me you're going to the supermarket, if you want to brunch at mommy's house, I'm not saying don't brunch at mommy's house.
Yeah.
Just tell me before you get to mommy's house. Not that I've called you and then I realize that you're at mommy's house, right? You know, that kind of thing. So for me, I think that is a big one. And one thing that I feel like I've seen in Nigeria a lot that irks me, and it was what you were saying about providing. The flip side of it is that I see a lot of men begging.
Right.
And that stresses me out a lot. And I don't say that because a woman should beg. I'm saying I don't see as many women begging as I see men. And I don't know if it's because men are much more in some of these workplaces I find them begging at versus women.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is. But I do feel like it ties back to resilience in that you then find that women are more resilient before they get to that place of begging than men are. And that's a particular Nigerian thing. I think that stresses me. I remember, my introduction, it was a man that was doing my makeup, it was a man that was doing my gele. And my dad is like, what's happening here? Women are leading banks and men are doing this. And I said, well, they're working. And I will take the fact that they're working over them begging, which is what I'm seeing a lot of. So, That's one that I'm not sure can be fixed, or I don't know how.
That's actually an interesting thing.
Yeah, and it's no offense at the airports, at the police, and that's why I said maybe it's because of the industries that they're in.
Yeah.
It's a lot of these places, right? Car park, doorman, and it's constantly a lot of begging.
But another thing I'm now realizing, maybe not in every instance, but maybe in some instances, maybe it's also because the way society is, especially in Nigeria, it's also like a lot of men are putting unhealthy pressure on themselves, on what they want to do, not just for themselves, but for
their family. Absolutely.
And for women specifically.
And for their wives specifically, and that kind of thing, like they don't want to go home empty.
They absorb more of the...
I agree. And that's why I said it was interesting that you used that word provision, because, and I think I was trying to talk about it, but I didn't really want to go into it.
Oh, why not?
No, more from a perspective of do we, who to blame? And it's not necessarily a blame game, right? Because, like you said, men are naturally hunters. Yeah. And then on the flip side of that is women are naturally, I don't want to say takers, but they're naturally the ones who, they take what you hunt, and then they produce more from it, right? So let's think about it. If you were bringing in your farm goods, then they cook, then they save, then they... And it kind of is supposed to work in that kind of cyclical nature. Yeah. But when it's not working in that nature, there's that imbalance. And so I agree with you. I think it's a deeper issue. But sometimes I'm like, and I respond and I say, well, like, I'm sorry, I'm here, I'm the female, or I'm much younger than you in many instances.
But it's actually an interesting statistic.
Begging is a...
But something I also found very weird, I know what it is. I think men are, or at least in Nigeria, I think they're more comfortable with, I don't know if I use the word begging / asking from other men who they maybe deem or feel like are somewhat more well-to-do.
Yeah.
Because we've organized, well, not my brand, but I've participated in some charity outreaches. And it's ironic how, statistically speaking, majority of the attendees for charity drives are women and kids. Mm-hmm. Apparently, the men in such societies don't want to go out in numbers because of stigma.
Right.
They don't want to be seen queuing for rice, tomatoes, or whatever it is, but the women don't care.
But that's usually the thing, right? You see that, so it's the flip of that. Like if we're looking for food, right? Like actual food items, yes, you'll probably see more women. The thing is, the men are asking in their place of work.
Yeah.
And I think that's like I said, if it was just a man, if they were asking just, a man, I think it would have been, it's me, like, I'm like, and so my question is, have we made that a societal thing where it's okay, right? Because like I said, it's everywhere. It's really literally every work.
It's increased a lot in the last 2 years.
And I believe so.
It's increased a lot. So I actually get what you're saying. That's actually an interesting one.
So yeah, the flip side of that is I want to see men less begging and more resilient and more hardworking, I guess, in that sense. But I also think everybody should be hardworking, honestly. I do not like a lazy person.
I know, like, the conversation is almost over.
Yeah, it's okay.
There's a particular tailor that had worked with me, with my brand, and done things, and the guy I don't understand that guy. Mm-hmm. His own case is unique because this guy has had opportunities to have made... If this guy was serious and his head was in the game, he would have made good money with me. He had made some little here and there, but I found it ironic how he was always like, oh, this, that, oh, I'm owing money, this on my wife, my kids, or I have 2 kids now, blah, blah, blah. Right. So he would rather beg than deliver on the work he's given. Yeah,
absolutely. And that's another...
It's justifying what you're saying. It's like, how are you as a man more comfortable... The times that he has asked me for money, there was some few times I just gave him, and I was more than glad. Right. I don't look down on my fellow man. Right. I'll never do that. I'll never look down on my fellow man. But at the same time, it's like, okay, fair enough, I've helped you out here and there, but now I'm giving you work. Yeah. I'm giving you work that if you do it well, more work will come. Yeah. And guess what he does? He botches it. He'll take like 3 months for something that was meant to be 2 weeks. Right. And I'm like, I couldn't get the logic. Yeah, and for me, it's like, I would rather see you ask for more work. Like, I will respect someone who comes and says, that's the problem there.
Hey, this is my current job, but you know what, on the side, I can do security for you. On the side, I can do this for you. Yeah. If you ever need a bouncer,
Yeah.
or something. I can, that kind of like see yourself doing more than just collecting for the day, if that makes sense. And I think that's where I struggle.
And I agree with you because in the last year or two, I think I'm a generous person, but I don't give men money like that, like I used to before, unless it's just little packing money, like 1.5, 2K. More of them, if they are like in close enough proximity to quote unquote ask me for money, what I'll ask them is, what work do you do?
Right.
I want to see if they do something that I can pay for, a service, rather than just giving them money. Because when you give them, they'll more likely come back for it.
Yeah. And something we didn't talk about, and again, not because you can solve this, but I think another big problem that we need to solve in Nigeria is the betting problem. That a lot of men find betting, sports betting.
That boy bets a lot.
Yeah, we need to figure out how we're going to destroy that industry because it's unfortunately primarily targeting the men of our society. Anyways, we could keep talking. Like how the one question became like a whole thing. But thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate this. God bless you. And HS Lifestyle?
HSLifestyle.co.
We'll tag it on everything anyways. Thank you. Please check it out and watch out for the pop-up and watch out for the next month men's brunch.
Yes. Are you around on the 1st of June?
Yes.
Fantastic. You're on dibla.com for
Of course. All right, thank you. Thank you for joining me in today's episode. Just like you would share with friends about a great book you read, don't forget to share this if you enjoyed it. Connect with us on IG and Twitter at twwpcast and get details on the website at worldwithoutpeople.org. And hey, remember to make loving others the story of your life. Until next time, this is The World Without People.